In this video, we're going to take our rectangle program and we're going to refactor the code. Our program is fairly simple, so it seems more of a trouble to refactor the code than not to, but in the long run, we want to learn how to refactor code because it will make large programs easier to manage. It will make the code easier to read. It allows us to divide and conquer. Different groups can write different sections. And it will save companies money in the long run. It saves production time, it saves on development time, and will save money in the long run. We'll be able to get a product out to our customers sooner rather than later. So we're going to go back to our rectangle program and look at how we could refactor that code into different methods. If we look at our beginning slide, we had decided to calculate area in one method and to calculate square feet in another method. And so that's what we will be doing. I went ahead and created one of the methods to show as a model, and then I will talk you through how to calculate or find the other method. The first method that I created was called find area, and the method is called here. So a method call is the method name followed by the parameters, length and width, for example, in this case. These parameters have to match exactly with the parameters that are being passed in. These are often called arguments, and these values are called the parameters. Our textbook has been referring to both of them as parameters, but some textbooks will call the values that are sent in the actual values arguments, and these other values that are in the prototype line or your method signature line, the parameters. So we need public static double for return type, find area, and then I need my parameter list. In the parameter list, you need both the data type and the variable name. Please notice I've shortened the variables to LEN for length and WID for width, just to show that they are representing the same thing and to show what order that they are in. You could actually name them the same thing, but I wanted to name them separately in this case, just as the example. And then I just return length times width, which is the area. So this method is pretty straightforward. We did add in some comments here, and it returns a value back here and assigns it to area. So now I'm going to do the same thing for calculating the number of gallons. And I'm going to public, and actually we can oftentimes just kind of copy and paste some of the previous code, copy paste. It's going to be the same as far as public static double, and then I need to find a new name for this method. Since I want to find or calculate the number of gallons, I'll just say find gallons. In this case, I only need one argument. So the number of gallons that I need the area method, so I'm going to have a double. And here's another way that you could calculate or to name it. Some people name it with an underscore right there just to designate it as a different than the area being passed in. And then here I'm going to show how maybe instead of using dividing by the 1.50, it would be better if I created a variable, and if that variable remains the same throughout the entire program, we call that a constant. I'm going to create final double, and it's going to be a constant. It's going to be the number of, it's the square feet per gallon, so I'm going to name it square feet per gallon. It's all in caps because it is a constant. We haven't talked about constants yet, but that will create a variable that I could use. So then when I want to, the calculation here for the number of gallons then is just going to be my area divided by square feet per gallon, and I'm going to copy and paste that. So I have exactly the same spelling, and then I just need to return that value. So it will return the area divided by the square feet per gallon. If you don't like this naming convention, I honestly don't like it, then we could also create a variable that just says an area. So a lot of times, so you're passing in an area. And so I'm going to return an area divided by the square feet per gallon in order to do that calculation. Clean up my white space just a little bit. And then when I bring that back here, number of gallons then will be assigned. This is where I need to change the code. I need to include my call to the method, which includes the method name, so find gallons, and then the argument that I'm going to send into an area, and that's going to be my current area. You don't need a data type when you're calling it, and so that should calculate the number of gallons. If I compile and go back to my playground and run. Now here's an example of where you guys could actually do some debugging and why writing out methods would help you with your code. For example, I could do find gallons, and I could enter find gallons. Let's say my square foot, I know it's 150 per gallon, so this should give me 1 gallon, and it gives me my 1 gallon back. And so I could calculate and test that out. Find gallons. If I had 330, I know that that should take 2 gallons, because be a 300 square feet for 2 gallons, so be over 2 gallons, so 2.2. So that appears to be working correctly. If I run main, then it produces my number of gallons, which I had calculated before as 4.33, and so it looks like our program is running correctly. And so that shows you how you can take a program and you're just going to use method calls, find area, and then number of gallons be find gallons, and then you can output number of gallons is going to be this variable here, concatenated number of gallons. It's also possible, some people get into the habit that once they start to learn how to call those methods and create variables, some people would do maybe something like the following. Instead of creating another variable here, they could say system.out.println number of gallons, and then we could call find gallons and pass in area. So you can include a method call right in your line of code. Compile, and we have, I forgot to comment out my previous line. Compile, and it should produce the same results, and it did. The disadvantage to that is I don't think it's as clear. It's not as readable. Like right here, I know exactly what this is outputting. If I didn't know something about the code, this might be a little bit more confusing to me. But it does provide you a little bit of a different application, or showing you that you can call that method from anywhere, as long as you have the method name and the arguments that are being sent in. I'm going to comment that line of code out right now so you can have it there for later if you want to go back and look at it. Last but not least, we should go ahead and calculate or put some comments in here. And so instead of find area, we have find gallons, and it inputs the area of a rectangle, and then find gallon returns the number of gallons of paint needed. And we are assuming 150 square feet is covered with each gallon. So that gives you an example of how you can modularize your code and to refactor and write methods. It practiced returning values from methods. It practiced declaring variables and using the double data type. It practiced concatenation. And so that's an overview. That should wrap up